With a layout of our MFIT training program. All right, and this is a PowerPoint that changes frequently because my ideas always change, but this is the current representation of how the program works, and a pretty solid one that I think we'll stick with for quite some time. So when we talk about our programs, just a couple formalities to look at. For our purposes in group exercise, we're dealing with a fairly small space, okay? So our workouts are going to be grouped into circuits for time efficiency. So we're going to perform anywhere from 3 to 5 exercises back to back for either a period of time, such as saying, okay, we're going to set the clock for 10 minutes, and we're going to perform 8 reps of each exercise, or we're going to perform 30 to 60 seconds of each exercise. The other thing to consider is that when I'm writing programs, we're using exercises in categories for substitution. For example, if we say hip dominance for an exercise, that means something like a deadlift, a kettlebell swing, a bridge, something that involves working the back of the legs. Whereas a knee dominant exercise is going to work the front of the legs. So a squat, a step up, a lunge, that sort of thing, where the knee is the primary hinge. For our upper body, anything that involves our pushing muscles are our upper body push. So that could be an overhead press, it could be a push-up, it could be a dumbbell press, upper body pull, anything that involves pulling, where the weight is coming towards my body. So a renegade row, a one-arm dumbbell row, a chin-up, a pull-down, really anything that fits into those categories. And the idea is that we're training movement as opposed to training muscles. So, my upper body pull is going to work anything that pulls, whereas my upper body push is going to work anything that pushes. And we could break it down more than that, but for purposes of group exercise, that's what we're looking at. Now, we've broken our program down recently into beginner and advanced, all right? And this is a revelation because we have so many different types of people that come in to our program, and many are just not able to move very well, right? And to throw them into a program with people that are very advanced would be a liability for both of those populations, okay? And so when a client comes into our program, we movement screen them to identify orthopedic risk, okay? And also see, can this person perform a basic push-up? Can they perform a squat, etc.? Based upon that, they're going to be categorized as either advanced or beginner, and then as well, we're going to look at, we either have a basic program that is general in nature, or if they have a knee problem, for example, we would give them our knee program with modifications, or our back program with lower back modifications. Okay, and again, the idea with that is that we don't hurt the person. And from there, with beginners, we want to keep our program similar. We don't want to change things every workout. We want to give them a steady diet of movement patterns that they could actually learn. Research has shown that over the first 8 weeks of training, we're not making strength gains as much as we're making neuromuscular gains, meaning we're loading software and we're teaching the person just new stuff. So, if we start with a squat, we're going to continue with that squat. And rather than saying we're going to change it entirely to say a lunge the next workout, we're just going to try to progress the squat, meaning we might start with the client holding onto a TRX and squatting, and then we move to, once they're able to do that with good form for 12, having them squat to a box without assistance, eventually handing them a kettlebell for a goblet squat. The idea is moving the client to the next level to achieve movement competence. And once they're up to a certain level, then we can move them on to our advanced program. So it's kind of like a conveyor belt. We want to get everybody into our advanced level. In some cases, it's going to take quite a while, for those that are dealing with injury and we need to injury proof them. And as you can see from our template here, we perform 3 sets of 5 to 12 reps. All right, we have 2 circuits that we perform for our beginner program. We have our strength circuit, which is an upper body push, an upper body pull, legs, and then metabolic, followed by our FMS correctives. All right, and if you're not familiar with the FMS, it's called the functional movement screen, something that I'm certified in. And basically what it is it's just looking at somebody's basic human movement and helping to use corrective exercise to bring up deficiencies in that movement. And so we use these base level exercises to kind of determine where the client's level is currently. And so, for example, with our upper body push, we start with an alternating dumbbell overhead press with 5 pounds. Once the client can do that for 12 reps comfortably, then we're going to move to 10 pounds, and then we move to dumbbell push press. And so again, we're moving along with levels. And as you'll see from our templates, basically what I do is I'll look at the client, and I'll say, okay, where are they in this workout? I'll kind of highlight that level, and then on the next workout, I'll see where they are, and if they're able to do the next thing, I'll cross that level 1 and move to level 2. My goal is to max out this sheet so we get everything to level 5. And once a client's level 5, then we know that we can put them into our advanced program with a lesser risk of injury. And so if we look at the beginner's workout schedule, again, it's similar to our advanced in that it's built for them to work up to 5 days a week. But in reality, what they're doing is we're doing our basic strength program 3 days a week, and then we're doing foam rolling and release work on 2 days a week. Okay, and so if we have somebody, for example, with a knee problem, okay, they would be doing their foam rolling, their stretching, all their directives for their knee stuff on our Tuesday, Thursday. So it's important that we want to get them in every day to give them something, but we're not using so much volume that we're overwhelming them. We're just we're doing something with them every day to benefit them as we go along. In our program, the idea is that once a client can perform over 12 reps with 3 sets, we move to the next level. All right. And, for me, I look at soreness. If the client comes in, let's say we have somebody that was able to do that level pretty easily for 12 reps. If they come in the next day, or you text them and you find that they're horribly sore or something's hurting, then you know that we gave them too much volume. And so what I recommend is starting with 5 reps for the client and then moving to maybe 8 reps on the next workout. That way, again, it's just sort of it is a progression. That's really what we're looking for. But from there, again, with us, we also include things before and after the workout. And so we have a finisher at the end, depending on the client's state of fatigue and injury concern. And what a finisher is just interval training. Okay, so we might have 30 seconds of work followed by 20 seconds of rest, repeated for 6 minutes. And what happens in our program is that we warm up together. We warm up our beginners and our advanced clients together, and we do what we call Prehab together, which is our rehabilitation. It's our injury prevention stuff. Then we break off. We train the client. We train these groups separately, and then we get back together with our finisher. And that way, it allows for teamwork and that sort of thing. But the biggest thing is that pay attention to the client's level of fatigue and injury. For example, if we have somebody that has an upper body injury, doing burpees is not going to be a sound choice simply because coming into a prone position is probably going to overwhelm their upper body. So either make a substitute, or if the person is red-faced, they're already really tired, then we're simply just going to skip that. Sometimes the workout itself is going to be conditioning, and that's just fine. Advanced clients do vary our exercises during the cycle, but the idea is that we vary patterns versus just completely changing what they're doing. And so an upper body push is always going to be an upper body push. It could be an overhead press, it could be a band press, but it stays in some way an upper body push throughout our cycle. With this group, we can start to incorporate explosive tempos, focusing more on particular body parts. We can start to do more neat things because, again, this person is not as much of an injury concern. Our program structure, Monday is what we call our strength day. All right, on Monday, we're assuming that the client is fresh. They've had 2 days to recover, and so on this day, we're using heavy weighted movements as well as jumps. If you're going to do plyometrics, this would be the day to do it. Though we don't want to do them high rep. We want to go anywhere from 5 to 8 reps because, again, we're trying to use the heaviest weight we can. We're trying to jump as high as we can to get some sort of neuromuscular gain, meaning we want to work on strength today. And I tell clients, I want you to not work as hard as you can overall, not do as many reps as you can, but I want you to work as hard as you can, meaning make the exercise as hard as possible. So if normally you do push-ups on the floor, challenge yourself by putting your feet up on a box. Or normally, if you use a 35-pound count to swing, have 45, you do not do that many reps. 2 days recovery day. Okay, and our client needs either choosing a workout. So we have in core class. With that, we just did a form rolls beforehand and help them recover. Wednesday is endurance. This is the day where we're training muscle T, push-up, squats. Classes that involve muscular tension or working swing. We do lunge. So if we're looking at one pre of each size back to back. So we have an upper body push, a lower body pull. So we use a hard push up or a hard version of a kettlebell swing. And when I say hard, I mean relatively hard for the equipment that we have in boot camp. A feet elevated push up for our population is about as hard as you're going to get, possibly adding weight on the client's back. But again, that's kind of what we're looking at. Then we use 2 core exercises to help to unload the client a little bit and for the muscles to recover. Again, this is a strength-based workout, so we don't want them going back immediately to doing, those exercises. So it's not about how many rounds that we accumulate. It's about the level of intensity today. Circuit 2 is similar. We just changed the categories: upper body pull, lower body push. Our finisher, again, is going to be Tabatas because this is a short interval-based, high-intensity finisher. Whereas, later in the week, we're going to get more into endurance-based finishers. Wednesday, similar as far as the warm-up of the prehab goes. We do the same thing, same warm-up, same prehab. Circuit 1 and Circuit 2, though, are now going to be for interval-based time. So I perform a tall curl to press for 40 to 60 seconds. Single leg deadlift, I change maybe at the 30-second mark if we're doing 60 seconds. We have a total body on this day, and then we have a core. Okay, and again, we have 2 circuits. It's just the categories change. And again, with this, the idea is sustained muscular tension. Okay, and that way, we tell the clients, today we do want you to go to failure. And for this one, instead of we're doing a kettlebell complex where we're using a lot more muscles. This is a little bit more muscularly intensive as far as this goes, and it's going to work in a little bit different way. But we're performing, maybe 3 to 5 exercises for 5 reps. We count down by 1 to 1. We go back up to 5 for 5 minutes. And so Friday, we're going to do a longer based Metcon. Again, same warm-up, same prehab, but for our Metcon, this is just a circuit of exercises that are designed to get the heart rate up. Basically, what we're going to do on this day is keep our heart rate aerobic for 30 minutes. Okay, so this is this is going to be we have 3 strength exercises here, followed by burpees and cone sprints. The metabolic drills are meant to spike our heart rate. They're meant to keep our heart rate up the whole time. And we end on this day with an ab circuit, just to break up the monotony a little bit. For our cardio class, the only difference between our Friday workout and our cardio workout is that we perform intervals at the beginning of our cardio workout to raise the heart rate. So then our Metcon is a little bit more geared to burning body fat. And again, we end with an ab circuit. For a core template, we have 2 ab circuits. Our first ab circuit being performed for reps, very similar in nature to our strength day. We want to try to make these exercises harder as we go along. So we're performing 3 to 4 core strength exercises, and those are like straight leg sit-ups, holding weights, ab wheel rollouts, things like that we can make progressively harder. Our second ab circuit is going to be more endurance based. This is kind of like Wednesday, where we want to focus on constant muscular tension. And if you'll notice that things like dead bugs, where we're holding a kettlebell, moving it around our body, or moving our legs up and down, that is sustained tension. Okay, and that's a little bit different than the breaks we would get in moving from exercise to exercise on 6 to 8 reps. And that combination of both is kind of the sweet spot to get our abs sore. And then again, for our butt circuit, that's going to we're just choosing 3 to 4 butt exercises that we perform for 40 to 60 seconds each. And so pre-workout, if the client does have an issue, if the client's dealing with, any kind of, knee problem, lower back problem, something that they need to prep for specifically before the workout, we ask them to show up early to perform their specific correctives. As far as the warm-up goes, we're going to foam roll for about 3 to 5 minutes, followed by our mobility drills and our prehab. And as you can see here, we have a beginner warm-up and an advanced warm-up, although we oftentimes just have everybody perform the advanced warm-up. And so we start with the foam rolling in those areas, and then we move to one of the warm-ups for our clients. Prehab is the idea that, again, we sit all day, we flex forward all day, certain muscles get turned off, certain muscles get weak. So we use prehab as a way to sort of wake up these muscles of the body, turn on our body stabilizer muscles, and get the right stuff firing. So we always do something for the hips, something for the core, and something for the upper extremity. And these are generally the exercises that we use. And the idea is that we just want to get this stuff in to fortify the client against injury and to help them function better in daily life. And finally, our conditioning is our finisher. And again, the way we work is it's basically the same type of schedule from Monday to Friday. Monday is going to be our hardest finisher, so we say 8 to 9.5 out of 10. Wednesday is going to be fairly moderate. We don't do one on Friday, and if we were to, it would be very easy. So again, you make sure that you tell the client on a scale of 1 to 10, I want you to do a 10. I want you to go as hard as you can today. All right, and that's going to let them know this is something where I really need to push ourselves. And as coaches, that's our duty, is to look at the client and see, hey, do they need conditioning at all, or can they really push themselves? And then give them instructions as far as this is the level at which we want the exercises to be today. As far as conditioning formats go, we have our shorter intervals for Monday, okay, and this is anywhere from 10 to 20 seconds for 6 to 8 rounds. We have our longer intervals for Wednesday, anywhere from 30 to 120 seconds, and then we have circuits, 20 to 2s, pyramid of pain, things that you might have experienced that we save for our longer Metcon days. With our conditioning schedule, again, day 1 is always going to be the hardest, 10 to 30 second intervals, explosive in nature. Day 2, going to be moderate in nature, so anywhere from 60 to 120 seconds, or 60 seconds on, 30 seconds off. Day 3, that's going to be variable. So generally we don't perform a finisher on that day. If the client needs it, we can throw it in. But generally we're going to be doing a Metcon. And what I tell clients is, just keep going. The idea is that we want to work your cardiovascular system like you're going on a run or something like that. As far as exercise selection goes, again, I cannot emphasize enough that we are trying to get the client's heart rate up. We're at the end of a workout when we do our finisher. With conditioning, that's all that really matters. So we're not trying to do metabolic weight training, for example. All we're doing is getting the heart rate up. Okay, and so if we have a hard circuit here, there's no reason why we can't replace a kettlebell squat jump with a frog hop, for example, where we take the kettlebell away. Or, if the client's doing an overhead press with 25-pound dumbbells as the prescribed thing, why you can't give them a dowel rod instead. The whole idea is that they move as quickly as possible with good form, and form degrades as we fatigue. So that's something that, you have to be pretty judicious about. That's coach's choice, but, know your clients and don't be afraid to give them an easier exercise, and always have one, for the circuit in mind. As far as dealing with injuries go, what I will do, if a client has injured something, their upper body, for example, I'll oftentimes either sub an upper body push with a pull, or if there's a problem, that we can't fix with that, if the client has issues moving one area of the body, I'm simply going to replace it with something else. All right. So, for example, if a client has knee pain, we're cutting out lunges, squats, that kind of thing, in favor of hip dominant exercises where we're doing swings, we're doing single leg deadlifts, that sort of thing. So again, this is something that takes a keen eye, but watching the client in the warm up, particularly if you've never worked with them before, is a good way to see, okay, this person has problems with the squat, or maybe they can't hold in a push-up position, so I'm not going to have them do that. Maybe I'm having them hold statically instead. I'm always making notes in my mind as far as this is what we need to do with this particular person. And that way, every workout is a screen.